This is Miss Melton again. Today we're going to be learning about rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme is just a fancy word of saying the patterns that the poet makes in each stanza for their rhyming. We're going to focus on finding the rhyming words in each line. And if you want to learn the rhyme scheme, you can learn that too. It's pretty easy. This is a poem called My Shadow, so I'm going to read it first, and then we'll look for what words rhyme. As I'm reading, if you see a word that rhymes, remember that in your head, and then when we go back, see if you're correct. I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me, and what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He is very, very like me, from the heels up to the head, and I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow, not at all like proper children, which is always very slow. For he sometimes shoots up taller, like an India rubber ball, and he sometimes goes so little that there's none of him at all. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play, and can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. He stays so close behind me, he's a coward, you can see. I'd think shame to stick to Nursey as that shadow sticks to me. One morning very early, before the sun was up, I rose and found the shining dew on every buttercup. But my lazy little shadow, like an errant, sleepy head, had stayed at home behind me and was fast asleep in bed. So did you find the rhyming words? In the first stanza, we have me and see rhyme, and head and bed. Did you find those rhyming words? Great. Do you know how many stanzas this poem has? If you said 4, you are correct. And each stanza has 4 lines. The rhyme scheme would be A, B, B. Let's look at the second stanza. Grow and slow rhyme, ball and all rhyme. Again, the first 2 verses of the stanza rhyme, and the last 2. We call this a couplet poem because each couple lines goes together. Play and weigh, and then see and me. Up and buttercup, head and bed. If you found all those rhyming words, kiss your brain. Let's see if we can find some other things about this poem. I found some repetition, very, very repeats. And when you see repetition, you also want to make sure that it is together and it creates a rhythm. Like he and he repeats, but it's not close together to create a rhythm. So we wouldn't say those are repetition. This whole poem is acting like a shadow is a real person, but a shadow is not a real person. So we could say the poem uses personification. We're going to learn more about that in another unit. Let's look at another poem. Right away, we can see this poem has 2 stanzas. The first stanza is very big, and the second stanza is just 1 verse. So, Kenny had a camera. See if you can find all the rhyming words. Kenny had a camera and took pictures while we ate. I thought it might be fun to use my food to decorate. I grabbed a brown banana peel and used it for a wig, dangled french fries from my nose, and snorted like a pig. I took some veggies from my tray and stuck them in my ears. I knew that I looked funny, 'cause the room soon filled with cheers. But best at being funny was my teacher, I suppose, 'cause when she looked and laughed at me, milk came out her nose. Another humorous poem. Let's find all the rhyming words. Did you find 8 and decorate, wig and pig, ears and cheers, suppose and nose? So this rhyme scheme has the first 2 lines, and then the third and the fourth line rhyme, and then the fifth and the sixth, and then the seventh and the first line of the next stanza rhyme. Now let's see if we see anything else in the poem. Is there any repetition or onomatopoeia? I see some alliteration by the brown banana. The B repeats, and but best being, that also creates a rhythm, the alliteration of the B sounds in this verse and then in this verse. Let's try one more. This is my teacher loves her iPod. How many stanzas does it have? If you said 3, you are correct. Let's read the poem. My teacher loves her iPod. It's always in her ear. She doesn't mind it if we joke or chat 'cause she can't hear. If we don't pay attention, she doesn't seem to care. Whenever she has music on, she wears a distant stare. Our principal dropped by one day, and she paid no attention. He took away her iPod, and he sent her to detention. This is also another humorous one. Let's see if we can find the rhyming words. Let's see. Ear and hear, care and stare, attention, music on, close but not exactly rhyming. Attention and detention. So each stanza has an A, B, C, B pattern. The second and the fourth lines rhyme. Do we see anything else? The C sound repeats for alliteration on this line. So this was some practice on rhyming. Make sure you watch the other videos on the different elements of poetry.